All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for making the time to come and attend this Q&A for the Queer Asian Stories Shorts program for the Wicked Queer Film Festival, as you can see from my background. So glad you can make it. And we're really, really excited to have you here, just being part of this and just talking about a bit more about your films and about your process. So a couple housekeeping notes. One, we do have captions on right now, so if you would like to have closed captions on, please feel free to click the live transcript button and adjust your settings however you want to. And also, we will be having some live translations going on as well. My partner Jay, my partner Jay, will be translating the questions into Mandarin Chinese, and we'll also be translating answers back into English as well. And also, if anyone else needs translation help, please feel free to let us know, and we will do our best to accommodate. I am Sheen Hui. I am a co-programmer of the Queer Asian Story Shorts program, and my partner Jay is my other co-programmer, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a little bit. And let's see, other than that, I guess more housekeeping stuff. If any of you would like a Zerb link to access the full Queer Asian Story Shorts program to watch it all in one go, please let us know. We will provide that link for you if you don't have it already. Yeah, I'll let Jay introduce themselves and then we can go on to introductions.
Hi all, I'm Jay and worked with Sheen on this program. Really glad to see you all here. We're coming from Boston, so really excited to be able to talk to you guys from all over the world.
Yeah, so I guess we can go into introductions. I guess the best way would be for me to just call on the person themselves so it's not as confusing. We would love if you could introduce yourself, introduce the short film that's part of that you made that's part of the program, and just just a little bit about yourself. Let's start with Yiru.
Thank you so much. Hello everyone, my name is Yiru and I'm here now at New York. I was just communicating with my supervisor using American Sign Language, even though my short film presented here at the festival was mainly in Chinese Sign Language, and I'm also from Shanghai and I'm trying desperately to learn Shanghai Sign Language, but my ASL is just better than my CSL, so apologies for that. Yeah, I had like a filmmaking background, and then after making Handscape, this short film, I decided to enter deeper into the deaf education area, and now I'm a full-time teacher of the deaf here, like teaching the kids with multiple disabilities other than deafness. So this is just a very quick and brief background of myself and my film. If you guys seen it, it's very short. It's about a hard of hearing boy living with his deaf mother who loved dancing and loved exploring everything through dance, and just like trying to figure out himself through the movement and the fingers. So yeah, let's move on to the next one.
Great. Could Jean and Jackie introduce themselves?
I'm Jackie. I'm the director of Fishbowl, which Jean wrote. I'm a fourth year student at UCLA program, film program. So that's a little bit about me.
Hi, yeah, I am the writer of Fishbowl, and which I collaborated with Jackie on when I was also at UCLA's screenwriting program. And I guess a little bit about, we're both from the Bay Area originally. I lived in New York for a little while before coming to LA, and I used to work in tech before I decided to kind of take the leap into writing for film and television. Fishbowl is my first time writing a short, and I'm so glad I had Jackie's help with it, because writing a short is also very different from writing like a feature or pilot, as you all know, and it was really with a lot of Jackie's direction and vision that we kind of narrowed it down, the story that we felt we could really tell in 15 minutes. Yeah, Fishbowl is basically, it's loosely inspired by something from my own life, and which we can probably get to a little more later. But yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go to Chi Chi next.
Hi, hi everybody. My name is Guo Xuanqi. I come from Taiwan, and I'm a freelancer now. And I just 研究所刚毕业。Yeah. So I'm take some case to earn money to live. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
So Chi Chi just graduated from graduate school.
All right, thank you, Chi Chi. And last but not least, let's go with Derek.
Hi, everybody. My name is Derek, and I am born and bred in Singapore, but I'm now a Melbourne-based documentary filmmaker. My film is called Forgiveness Day. Forgiveness Day is a portrait of love and trauma, where two brothers find themselves navigating the space between trust, faith, and healing. Queer filmmaker Derek Ho, which is myself, journeys back to Singapore in the hope of revealing to Jeremiah, my brother, a secret that has been deeply buried for the last 30 years. Yeah, that's for me.
All right. Thank you all so much. All right. So next we're going to go into questions. So like I mentioned earlier, we'll have Yiru answer first, but other than that, I'm not going to, call out names every single time and go in a round, but feel free to speak when you want to. And, I would like for this to be a conversation rather than a straight interview. So, all right. So, and I will let Jay translate the question after each one when I say it. So the very first question is, what inspired you to make your respective films, and why did you choose to tell that particular story?
I believe it's in my second year at NYU, Tisch, and I sort of gave up one department required filmmaking course because our just very weird scheduling that we cannot take language course and this major course together. So I said, oh, I want to take this sign language course, but the dream of wanting to learn sign language actually was origin when I was like in grade school, when I was like actually in Shanghai, when I was like around maybe 8 or 9. And I felt really lonely. I feel that I don't have a lot of friends. I feel like I'm just not a very popular kid. And then I decided, hey, why not? I will gonna learn some sign language. I'm gonna make new friends who are maybe deaf or hard of hearing. So I have that idea when I was in grade school, but I don't have the chance to actually learn the language until I entered New York University. And for the first time, I get to decide what courses I'm taking. And along the same time, I started to taking public performances, I started to take choreography, all these things that establish me in front of the camera, not only behind the camera, because for those years, I've been practicing and training myself to see through the lens, to manage what the frame looks like, but I never really experienced, in front of the camera. So I decided to try that out myself. So that's why in this film, it has a lot of dancing elements, and I myself also choreographed a little bit of the dance that he did on the street in Shanghai. It was just, I think it's just pure serendipity that the full film got finished before 2020, before the pandemic hit. And it was, every time I watched it, it reminds me of that pure time that people can just be very free dancing in the street. And in the year of 2020, the queer film, not like the queer film festival, but the Shanghai Pride was sort of got canceled by the government. So that was another thing always in the back of my mind because I was in a girls' school, the only public girls' school in China for 7 years. So during those 7 years, I've been knowing a lot of stories from the LGBTQ communities, from the queer communities, and that's not very popularized at the moment and got censored a lot even in the modern day society. So that was another major thing for me to make this film happen. And it got a lot of metaphors, and people, my audience, watch it and have their own different thoughts for it. But those, my dancing, my performance experiences, and my personal experiences of doing the girls' school and meeting all these friends from the community really prompted me to make this film.
Thank you so much. I guess whoever would like to hop in after, please feel free.
Okay, I'll jump in. For me, Fishbowl came from, it was inspired by something that happened to me when I first came out to my parents years ago. And essentially, long story short, what happened was I was seeing someone at the time, and my parents went behind my back to communicate with them and basically blackmailed them behind my back to try and break up with me. And which, I think when I tell especially a lot of Western audiences, and by Western, we're all in the West, but problematic, but when I tell non-Asian or non-immigrant families, that's usually like a huge shock, like, oh my God, how could your parents possibly do that? And I think, in the context of an Asian American immigrant story, it's actually not that crazy, right? This idea that your family always knows best, and as long as they think they're looking out for you, they sort of get to do whatever they want, even if it transgresses what we see as like distinct kind of moral lines. And so, yeah, loosely inspired by that, but then, we created new characters and set in the Bay because we're still both from there. So for us, it's sort of like a little love letter to the place we grew up in, which is, super Asian, but still, I feel like Asian Americans in the Bay Area still live in almost like a suspended in time, in like a immigrant bubble that you would think it's super liberal because it's in California, it's in Silicon Valley, but it's, it crosses with sort of how the older generation came over. So Jackie, I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, I'm just very grateful for Jane letting me to be a collaborator in that story. Yeah, and it's just, there's it's both a queer story, but also an Asian American story of finding identity and trying to traverse lines between home and things that are outside of home that feels more friendly or inviting, or yeah.
Right.
All right, I'll jump in then. Back in 2018, when I was still in film school, I was editing away, and out of the blue, I received a text message from my brother through our family WhatsApp group chat. And in this text message was this link to sign a petition to uphold Penal Code 377A in Singapore. So to give you guys a bit of context, it is still illegal to be gay in Singapore, and it says Penal Code is the thing that still criminalizes homosexuality in Singapore. So I was shocked. I was shocked because all along I thought my brother was gay, and so when I received that text message, I thought, what is going on? And so that sparked, there was the catalyst, and it triggered entire exploration of wanting to find out what had actually happened to him. But at the same time, the more I thought about it, it brought me back to memories of our childhood, and it reminded me of something that happened 30 years ago. And instead of focusing on his journey and how he transitioned from a gay person to a hardcore religious person, I chose to focus on my perspective, which is the incident that took place 30 years ago, and me going back to Singapore to make an apology for it, with the intention to make the apology for it. Yeah, that's how it started my journey to this film.
All right,
That's
thank
me.
you so much. Chi, would you like to?
对，如果需要翻译的话，可以说中文。
OK， 好，谢谢。我当初做这个作品的原因是因为之前台湾的社会话题上面就是关于性教育上面，那我一直很好奇的就是说，情欲这件事情，我觉得它是天生的，它是动物性本能的东西，为什么大家要这么害怕它，这么惧怕它这样？那尤其是大人为什么要那么害怕小孩子知道情欲这件事情？因为他到了青春期自然就会发生的。所以因为这个好奇，所以我就想说，那现在的小朋友在面对情欲的时候，那会是个什么样的情况？所以我就尝试去做一些田野调查，然后去从我所听到的一些故事当中去写出这个故事，这样子。谢谢。
Thank you. So Chi made this film initially as an exploration for to understand why sexuality is something that is a taboo in Taiwanese society, even though it naturally occurs during the teenage period. And so in thinking through this question, Chi decided to do research and interviews with teenagers to better understand what happened in the real world. And from that research, Chi produced this film. Thank you all for sharing us your stories. It's really great and interesting to hear about how folks on this call have been able to work through a lot of times really difficult and personal situations and really have converted them to power. So I think that's something that definitely resonates through the films. They feel really intimate and very powerful. So really thank you for bringing all your works to reality. Our second question is, what are some of the challenges that you guys faced in making this film?
Well, I'd probably go first, and it'd probably be my last question for this time period. The biggest challenge was multiple languages. Imagine working with a bunch of deaf talents and deaf and hard of hearing talents. So recently the Oscar just gave the best picture to Coda, right? So everyone knows that, and the deaf actor Troy just got the best supporting actor, which is marvelous, like made history for that. So it really made me think of, and also reflecting on my own experiences, like working with deaf actors and how we make sure the communication was good. So first of all, I studied some Chinese Sign Language just in order to do some basic communicating with them about my ideas. And we have the Sign Language interpreter all day there for the rehearsals and for the set. I believe that's a very unique experiences, and that's also a very unique challenge. It's just because once you understand the difference between a visual language and the spoken language, you will understand how difficult it is to translate some of our written word into their performances, just because sign language does not have a written form. So whenever we are trying to discuss lines, we don't discuss it like we discuss using Chinese or using English. We don't do that. But I will be sitting there and observing how they act out and how they sign that sentences. And we make adjustments based on the visuals. And that's one of the most interesting thing I think you can do as a filmmaker, because we're so visually oriented. We are so visually, we want to convey so much information. We want to convey our ideas through these images, through these frames. But when using sign language as the main language in the film, we have to think about how we incorporate them into our framing, into our mise-en-scènes. For example, we cannot do close-ups because we cannot see their fingers, because we cannot see their hand shapes, so we cannot know what they're communicating about. So thus, we have to eliminate many choices in terms of editing, in terms of our choices of shots. So that's a lot of challenges that I think not a lot of filmmakers will experience if you're not working with a specific community. So after many different interviews about this film, I just want to put in a little bit more about how this film actually touches the community. So there was this queer community within the deaf community in China actually approached me saying that they want to bring my film to every event that they will have in the future, seeing from 2020, this film is finished. So I think that's one of the things of making films like this, even though it's a very short film, even though it originates from a very personal experiences or a very personal willing, but after even like a generalistic approach to my subjects, to my topics, I gradually realized that filmmaking is not just for making a very pretty or beautiful film, but you really, for me, I deliver something that I feel it can touch people's lives. And people are saying to me, the deaf communities are saying to me, hey, you're really telling my story. And that's the kind of connection that I really want to bring, not only in my debut, like this, my first ever short film made, but I also want to implement that in my future films as well. And I know hearing your prompt of making your films, I believe you all are capable, we are all capable of making a film that's beyond the surface. I think we are all capable of making a film that can grow up with all of us. That's not just a product sitting there and just waiting for the dust to cover it. But I think we are all capable of doing that. And I've said that as my personal goal as well. And I just want to thank you, the Wicked Queer, for giving this opportunity to screen it and to have this Q&A session. Thank you very much. Nice meeting you all. And I just really have to be kicked out of this building. Thank you so much. And feel free to find me over social media, and because I am being thinking of doing the documentary with the deaf blind community in the future, and I've been thinking a lot of interviewing and doing field studies, 田野调查. So and I know Taiwan just because I've been reading and researching a lot about special education and deaf education, and Taiwan's doing a wonderful job on that. So just want to acknowledge everyone on their films, and thank you very much for everything. Have a great night.
Thank you, Yiru. Appreciate you supporting us. All right, who wants to follow that?
I forgot what the question was.
The question was like, what challenges did you face in filmmaking?
Jackie, I think that's a you question.
We filmed actually right before COVID hit. It was like February, so we didn't have too much of the issues of when COVID hit and production was a little difficult to get off. But surprisingly enough, casting was really difficult in terms of the older generation of the cast members. We were trying to find someone like the mother figure, the parents who could speak Mandarin, the language, and none of them could. And then oddly enough, the kids could speak it. So, which isn't something you hear very often. It's usually the kids don't, like, I don't speak my home language. I don't, like, my Cantonese is really kind of broken, but you know, my parents speak, right? So I think that was a very interesting hiccup we had to kind of overcome, and it was totally unexpected when we were preparing our film. Yeah,
That's right. And then on the writing side, we, had to make adjustments because originally my script had a lot more Chinese in it, mostly Mandarin. And I did sort of want to play with the idea so Fishbowl follows two young women they've known each other all their lives, but they come from slightly different backgrounds. Just like one has a Cantonese background and the other is Taiwanese. And for me, it was interesting to sort of see, in America, we're all seen sort of as a monolith, but I did want to try to play around and make some distinctions between like different Asian cultures, even different Chinese cultures. And without the really believable accents, like I was like, oh, we can't do this because this person is not gonna, like, to anyone who knows this, the mom who's supposed to be Taiwanese is not gonna sound Taiwanese, and ditto with the Cantonese. So then instead of pretending, we sort of just went back to kind of more English phrases and did other things so that you wouldn't be pulled out of the experience. But yeah.
Okay, I'll go next. I presume Jean's finished. Okay, cool. Look, I feel that my film is full of challenges, and having to live with it now that the film is out in the world is challenging. Getting all kinds of feedback can be really challenging. I think the biggest challenge for me is access. I very naively thought that because I'm doing a film about family and I had no intentions of, hurting anybody. And I thought it's going to be relatively straightforward. I made a big mistake of not getting my participants sign a consent form from the start. Because I thought we were family, right? And so that was problem number one. And throughout filming, my brother withdrew a couple of times. The first time he withdrew, he came back, and the second time he withdrew was when filming wrapped up. And at that time, I was prepared to go back home to Melbourne and with nothing, and that was fine. I was just over it. But fortunately for us, the following day where we were scheduled to fly back to Melbourne, and I think he had time to think about it, and he realized he had overreacted, and he actually turned around to sign the consent form. So, but I guess with documentary filmmaking, we are obliged to consider what the participants want, even if they have signed the consent form as well. Like if they design it and decide they don't want to be a part of the film, then I think we are ethically obliged to consider not to include them or not to make the film after all. But fortunately for us, he relented. He realized that everyone has their best intentions with this particular film, and he agreed and gave us his blessing to share the film with everybody. So yeah, that was a real big challenge.
I'm so curious to watch your film later, but I'm just curious. So do you feel like after this process, have you gotten closer with your brother, or has it damaged the relationship a little bit?
Look, we have a very strange relationship in the sense that even when we grew up in the same under the same roof, we do not have the best relationship, and we don't really communicate much at all. At that time, I thought it's quite typical of a Singaporean Chinese family, but I realized after leaving home, it's not, it's not ideal. So has the relationship improved after filming? It got slightly awkward afterwards, I have to admit, but we're on talking terms. But I think homosexuality is still a topic that he would rather not talk about at this stage in his life. So I just have to respect that.
Yeah, I had a quick question too for Derek. I was also wondering, kind of in the same lines as Jean, if, because you said that your brother first contacted you about 377A. And I was wondering if he ever changed his mind about that. I know it's very contentious in Singapore about that. They've tried to repeal it many times and they failed many, many times. But I was wondering, yeah, if he ever changed his mind or if his experiences with you changed his viewpoint a little bit.
Look, I don't think so. I think he's still quite deep into his religion and embracing homosexuality. It's probably not on his agenda right now, but I'm hoping the film would be a catalyst that would slowly chip away, and one day he would just realize it's okay to be who he is, as a Christian and as a gay person. That's my hope for him anyway. But even if it doesn't happen, it's okay, because that's the journey that he had chosen for himself, and that's the path that you feel that the safest, and that's enough for me. Yeah.
That's great that you're so supportive. Chi-Chi, if I could bring you into the conversation. So clearly your film touches on a very challenging topic of teenage sexuality. And so just wondering, what kind of challenges did you face in terms of making the film?
OK，我觉得最大的挑战主要是小孩演员的爸爸妈妈，就像刚刚讲的，就是他们会害怕小朋友碰触这个话题，甚至我有遇到家长会问我说，小朋友真的懂这些事情，真的懂情欲这件事情吗？他真的可以理解剧本里面所描述的事情吗？那我觉得小朋友其实都是懂的，只是我们太害怕去面对他，甚至不敢去跟小朋友谈论这个话题，所以我觉得就是最大的困难点就是在说服父母亲上面这样子。那我很幸运的是，最后找到这2个小朋友的爸爸妈妈都非常的开明，然后他们也非常的支持我把这个议题给说出来，这样子。
Thank you. So one of the biggest challenges that she faced in making this film was that actually the parents of a lot of the child actors who were auditioning were originally scared that of their children being exposed to these quite mature themes. And this is despite that a lot of times she does find that the kids do usually understand these issues, and it's the parents that are not willing to really confront that their kids have this knowledge or have this awareness. Eventually, Chi-Chi was very fortunate to find these 2 particular child actors that ended up in his film, as the parents were quite supportive of bringing these themes and topics to the screen.
All right, thank you everyone. Really interesting to hear how the different mediums and different themes that everyone has chosen to tackle has affected the kind of challenges that you all have faced. So we have one last question, and that question would be, do you have any advice for young filmmakers out there? So whoever wants to jump in, please feel free.
I'll jump in. I'll say just keep believing in what you're doing, because we're not hearing enough voices from people like ourselves, and I think it's important that we tell our stories with authenticity. Our queer Asian stories, and the more we tell them, the more we can normalize society that it's okay to be gay, it's okay to be queer, it's okay to be Asian, it's okay to be all of them at the same time. And the only way we can really do it is to have more presence in the media, and which is why our stories are important to be told.
I think just from my own experience, I feel like I'm firmly of the belief that it's kind of never too late, but that and that means, I don't just mean, if you find yourself older and you're like, oh, I want to make a film, but is it too late now? It's not. But also, if you're younger and you don't have to feel like you need to do it now too, right? Like, something I'm grateful for is I feel like the more people I meet here, a lot of people have lived their lives, right? Like, there are people who have gone through so much, including raising children or retiring, and we need those stories too. And you need to live life in order to empathize with people and to tell those stories. And so I think it's okay to not feel like, oh my God, filmmaking is only for when you're young. That at any point, if you want to do it, then do it.
I think on the note of what Derek and Jane have said, it's I think story matters first, right? I think when you're young, and even as a student filmmaker, we get sidetracked by a lot of technique or dazzling, shots or editing, right? But really, all of that is in service of the story itself. So if you can find something you're passionate about, or a story that you really feel strongly for and have a need to tell, really do everything you can to support that, and just don't be sidetracked about. You can make a film on an iPhone that's so palpable and powerful, as long as the story matters.
换我，我想其实最主要还是相信自己啦。然后因为我觉得电影是一个非常好的媒介去跟这个世界沟通，因为我觉得我们作为创作者，一定是从这个世界，从自己的生活周遭里面观察到一些事情。那这些东西可能是一个议题也好，可能是一个情绪也好，但是我们可以透过创作去说自己想要说的东西，去跟这个世界沟通。所以我觉得不要害怕把你所感受到对这个世界的所有的感受，你想说的就勇敢的透过创作去把它说出来，这样子。谢谢。
So Chichi says that the most important thing to do as a filmmaker is to believe in yourself, as films are a great way to communicate with the world. As creators, we see the world in the way that we do, and through creation, we can communicate what we're seeing to the world. So don't be scared about expressing exactly what you're seeing, and that's the main recommendation. Yes.
And I just want to quickly shout out, of course, you, Sheen, Jay, and Charles, and everyone at Boston Wicked Queer for providing the platform for us to do this. Because without that, it'd be even harder to get eyeballs on Asian American queer films. So
No,
thank you.
definitely the fortune is ours. I mean, we have the fortune of seeing so much great content come through, and we are always really grateful that we're able to share this content to our platform. And so really thank you for creating the works that you have done. And we're so happy to have you in our program, and so happy to have you here and to be able to speak to you. So thank you for taking the time. And I think that's it. we hope to hear from you in the future and see more of your work.
Thank you, everyone. Just wondering, is it possible for me to see everyone's work as well? Like, do you have